HDR. And before we get started here, just a little thing. We had when we started this sewer project and we're going to go down to Chico with it, before that we had actually looked at the step system, and at that time things were different pre-fire. The citizens here wanted to see a full system, and the water board wanted to see a regional system, so that's why Chico was decided that that was how we were going to go. So since then, with the costs spiraling out of control, and the water board has decided that yes, we need a cheaper solution so we can get funding for it. So I want everybody to know there is not any system that we've decided on moving forward with now. That's part of what this meeting is about, is to get the input. And I want you to know how hard everybody is still working to deliver this project and how disappointed. There's nobody more disappointed than the people that have been working on this for as long as they have. And everybody is still working just as hard, and they're dedicated to delivering a system for this community. So I want everybody to be aware of that. And with that, I'm going to see if Heidi wants to say something.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. I know this isn't high on everybody's social calendar, but this is imperative that we have everybody's input moving forward so that we can all work towards pulling this project off, hopefully in the near future.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor Crowder, Councilmember Lang. It's my pleasure to open up our community meeting for the Paradise Sewer Project. And again, I'll echo the same comments, just how important this project is and how thankful we are for your time tonight. And we really do look forward to hearing from you. This is about you and how the project should go moving forward. So it is my pleasure again to introduce, you heard from the mayor and a council member. We have a whole team here of people. Jim Goodwin, our town manager. Of course, I am Mark Maddox, the Public Works Director, Town Engineer. Colette Curtis, our Recovery and Economic Development Director, is here. Lewis Johnson, our Supervising Projects Manager, is here. And then from our HDR team, Allison McReynolds, if you want to raise your hand. JB Neathling to my right, he's our Wastewater Treatment Process Specialist. And then Michaela Dennis, also from HDR. So those are the folks that are here. And so after we finish the meeting, if you've got questions and you want to tag one of us, feel free. But with that, I'll give you a kind of a quick agenda similar to the one published outside. Our really goal is, again, to make this about you and to hear what you want to say about the direction of this project. So with that in mind, I'm going to keep our comments pretty brief to give a quick overview of the project history, where we are today. JB is going to provide a quick presentation about wastewater treatment processes and what we are looking towards and what are our options moving forward. And so that we can marry the two together between your ideas and the proven technologies that are out there for us to consider. And then if you saw as you were coming in, there's kind of a quick little public polling activity, a great opportunity to find out on some really kind of key foundational issues on how the project might look as we look towards a local wastewater treatment facility. So there's a couple of questions there that kind of will just provide great data for the council and the ad hoc committee on your kind of pulse on the direction of the project. And then we'll go ahead and move to the public comment section of the meeting. Again, that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. So our goal is to make sure everyone has time to be heard. I know we're collecting the cards over to my right, your left. And so we'll go through there. If you haven't had an opportunity to fill out a card, there are some outside. Please do fill one out, and then our goal is again for the the community meeting to be from 6 to 8, and we want to again make sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard. So we're kind of targeting 3 to 5 minutes, and so we'll turn in the card over there. Someone can pass it over for you. So we'll kind of gauge how many cards we have and make sure that we have enough time for everyone to be heard. And then we'll close it out and kind of go over next steps from there. So with that, I promised a brief history dating back to 1969. The Butte County General Plan included language in there that Paradise pre-incorporation needed a sewer. And since that time, various iterations of staff, council, and community have always been working towards finding a solution to deliver the Paradise Sewer Project in some form or fashion. Certainly, we don't need to go over every single edition of the project, but what we can say is here, post-Camp Fire in 2018, obviously, the 2018 Camp Fire occurred, and the Paradise Sewer Project is our key to our recovery. Our objectives are still the same, to improve groundwater quality and environmental conditions, but restoring affordable housing to Paradise and removing a major barrier for commercial recovery. Those are the three pillars to this project, before the fire and here moving forward in our recovery. So the council member, Mayor Crowder, opened with kind of a brief study about, or a brief overview of our most recent efforts. He mentioned the 2017 study that did recommend a regional and local option with a step system. But again, public feedback was given there at that moment to move towards a full gravity flush and forget, for a lack of better words. So with that, again, I mentioned the impacts of the 2018 Camp Fire, and that really kicked off a new alternatives analysis in 2020. From there, we selected the regional option to partner with the City of Chico. We had a final adopted programmatic environmental impact report, which is, imperative for the delivery of any type of capital project, let alone one this large. We received $30 million for pre-construction phase work to design the project. We signed a contract with the City of Chico on how a regional project would be operated and governed. From there, we hired a progressive design build team to kind of scope out the project further through, again, leveraging the industry experts as well as the design experts to deliver the project in the most efficient manner possible. And then late last year, we definitely saw a drop-off in funding availability, and we were forced to accept a reality that the state's contribution towards the project was not going to meet our original expectations. And then that, coupled with, again, increased project costs, really did make the previous version of the project financially infeasible. So with that, we had a special meeting on January 21st where you heard Paradise Town Council vote to direct the project towards a local option. So from there, this is a key step, this community meeting, about what that is going to look like into the future. Again, keeping it brief here. Okay, so one of the other factors that was decided out of that special meeting was the formation of the ad hoc committee meeting, and you've again met our council that is participating on that committee. The purpose of that committee is to increase project momentum while keeping the public apprised of progress to find a fundable, permittable, scalable wastewater collection and treatment solution. Anything beyond that, we are absolutely open to on how to get that done. Our aim is to identify a revised Paradise Sewer Project description as soon as possible so that we can continue our funding pursuits. We can revalidate any environmental reviews as needed, and then really get design, permitting, and right-of-way started and finished. So when it comes to moving forward, obviously we heard about the project increases and the lack of funding availability, and so we really do have to reset project expectations. With that in mind, though, in the town's 45-plus year history, this project has never been closer to a construction-ready state. And you heard it in the opening remarks, this is a key recovery project, a critical effort we are working on every single day. And we don't anticipate that changing anytime soon in any version of this project. Regionalization has been abandoned. Don't need to cover that again. But the project must consider options to site a localized wastewater treatment facility and phase the originally planned sewer service area. That's a new reality, and I'll cover more about secured funding here on the next slide. But as it lies today, we still do not have enough funding to construct a revised project. So that's really key and a point of communication we want to make sure is known. When it comes to project funding, we have secured again the $30 million for which is Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds. That's CDBG-DR. Through planning and infrastructure, there's $30 million for planning, $15 million towards construction, but it might be able to reallocate to pre-construction phases if needed. We are so grateful for the $1.75 million congressionally directed spending made possible by Congressman LaMalfa. And then as far as our funding prospects, we are reviewing a $50 million allocation through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Section 219 program, which was also written in by Congressman LaMalfa. And then we are following leads for a $27 million State Water Board Division of Financial Assistance grant. And then we are aware that there is a $20 million low-interest loan option. But as was the case in 2017 and every day since the fire, we understand that loans are really not of interest for the capital costs of the project. And so it has been our mission to really minimize that as much as possible to get this project funded entirely upfront through construction. So at this time, when we looked forward about what our funding needs are moving into this localized treatment facility version of the project, we don't know how much the target is. It is actually really dependent on nights like tonight, where we're going to hear from you about what you would like to see in the what a treatment facility or a phased collection system might look like. So that obviously is going to inform design decisions, which are going to inform cost. So with that, we are trying to identify what the version of the project will look like so that cost information and the funding pursuits, like I mentioned before, can continue. So as a quick reminder, a complete project includes 3 critical factors: collection, treatment, and dispersal. And so on the right here, I have just a reminder of the regional option and what we were looking at, which was a collection system that served the entire sewer service area. And if you aren't familiar, you can see at ParadiseSewer.com. The original sewer service area primarily focused on the corridors of Clark, Skyway, and Pearson, and some properties in between. Treatment was going to occur at the Chico Water Pollution Control Plant, and then the dispersal component of the project, again, through that plant, is part of the Sacramento River. So obviously, since we do not have a version of the Sacramento River here on the ridge, and we are moving away from the regional option, we have a lot to decide. One of which being the collection system. You heard earlier, we are looking at a phased sewer service area, and again, that ties into one of our polling questions out front. And then obviously in that collection system, we're going to look at a step versus a gravity system. But really key is, in addition, is how are we going to treat and how are we going to disperse any effluent from the treatment process, and you'll hear more about that in a moment. As far as we do move forward, we're looking at kind of the guardrails or parameters on how the project needs to move forward. We are open to all ideas that meet the objectives of you, the community, and we are seeking a solution which fits within funding availability and meets state standards. So that's obviously very critical and something that the town does not have control over about what those standards are. But we are certainly aware there are numerous options that can do that, and so we're excited to hear more about that as we go forward. Community and vendor input, this has been paramount for the ad hoc committee and the council at large, is opportunities for more community input. And so while we're grateful for your time tonight, this isn't the end. As needed, there could be additional public meetings. Obviously, we'll have updates at regular council meetings as well. I also want to mention public comments are always welcomed. I have an email address here, but you're always welcome to come to here at Town Hall and meet with staff at the front desk and make appointments. We've also issued a notice to vendors, and there's a packet on the table out front too, and this packet was also emailed to all Town of Paradise approved on-site operators. It's also been distributed to those that have come to public meetings and expressing interest about the project. And we're also doing proactive outreach to industry experts. And what this packet really looks like is just an invitation for time to meet with staff and our project team to find out more about your idea and more about your preference of how this project should go forward. Printed invitations are available again here online at ParadiseSewer.com. Again, I'll iterate, we really do want to meet with anyone who is interested in providing options that can meet key criteria. We are asking for these requests for invitations or application to meet with us by March 21st, so we can keep this process and feasibility study moving. So I mentioned the key criteria for selecting next steps. In general, we're looking for options that have 5 proven applications for treatment and discharge. We were really looking for at least 1 permitted application in California. And then as we look into a phased sewer service area, we're looking at the ability to reach full build out as well. So with that, we're looking for an option that will help us start at least with 100,000 gallons per day, and then at full build out about 1 million gallons per day. So with that, I think we did great on time, 6:15. We'll pass it over to JB, who's going to give a quick little wastewater 101 presentation, and we'll get to the public participation component. JB?
Thank you, Mark. See if I can operate this thing. Yeah, I think I can operate this thing.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, so I was tasked to give you a kind of an overview of wastewater treatment. I called it Wastewater 101.
Here, I can do it too.
Okay. Okay, next. Okay. So I said, I like to start at something simple. What is in wastewater? So what makes it up? Why do we want to treat it? And so when you look at it, the first thing that's in there is water. It's over than 99% of it is water. But then you have soluble and produced. So to categorize things, because if you want to remove them, you want to put them in a kind of a box so you can remove from this box and this box and this box. So the first box is whether it's particulate or soluble. In other words, is it something physical or something in solution? The second one is the nature of that particle or that compound. And the main ingredient here that we want to go after is the organics. And on the right hand, you see all kind of pictures of different organic compounds that you can see. These are the regular foods, the juices, and so on and so forth. And some of them appear in the wastewater as particulates, and some appear in the wastewater as soluble, like sugar. You put it in, it's in dissolve, so you need to get it out of the water. The next category is nutrients. So nutrients are typically removed to avoid overstimulation of algae growth in the receiving waters. And so there's two primary nutrients that we're after. One is nitrogen and one is phosphorus. But then there's other things like pharmaceuticals that's also coming into it. Now, nutrients are usually concentrated in the human body in the urine, so it comes out with urine. It's all soluble, and then we need to take that out. And then the next category is disease-causing organisms like pathogens, viruses, and then other chemicals is often found in the wastewater, and more are emerging over time. So how do we remove them? So if you think of it, it's pretty simple when you think about it. How do we remove a particulate? There's two fundamental ways. The first one is by exclusion, like a screen. On the left-hand side, you see there's a screen. It has a grit on it, and it has openings. There's a fine screen that's behind the coarse supporting grit. And all that the water flushes through it, and anything that's bigger than the screen opening is removed. So there we remove particles and even rags and things like that. The other way is to let it settle to the floor of a tank. So you put it in a tank, and everything that's heavy, the particles will go lie on the floor. And then you've removed it, and then on top is the mostly soluble. Well, there's always little particles that never settles, and so you have to deal with them also. You can put a physical barrier like a filtration cloth. I show you here a device that the water flows through that carpet-like material to the inside, and in doing so, the carpet kind of excludes the particles, and you get a pretty clean water going out through the inside. The advantage of soluble compounds is it's very easy to remove them biologically. If you have a particle, then first they have enzymes that need to break it down so it's soluble, and then the organisms can remove it and clean up the water for you. So taking out the particles is important. And then on the right-hand side is kind of the ultimate today. It's using membranes. Maybe some of you have point-of-use devices in your home where you've seen them to clean the water that comes out through the tap, and they use these type of membranes to put it through a very exclusionary thing. Take all the particles out. How do you remove soluble organics? Well, you can soluble and particulate. Right now, you have many septic tanks in this community. So you're very familiar with this, and you know there's water going out of it. So in that water, you often have a lot of soluble organics still going out, and that gets oxidized once it hits the infiltration system. Oxygen comes in, and bacteria will break it down. If you want something a little more mechanical, facultative oxidation ponds, these are large basins where you keep the water, and you keep it in there for days and days and days, like in these over 60 days, it stays in a series of ponds. And over that period of time, slow natural processes will break down the organics and take it away. But you can also build a mechanical plant, so in this third option, where you build a basin, and now inside the basin you concentrate bacteria, and you keep them there, and as the bacteria see the organics, it'll remove the organics. It'll break it down and oxidize it. In the process, you have to, just like we eat food and then we breathe, and the breath gives you oxygen, and the food gives you the organics that you can break down and get energy from. Very same process, but here we use bacteria to do that. And you can see the fizzing on top of on the surface of the water. It's from just bubble air like you see in a fish aquarium, used very commonly to produce oxygen for the fish, or in our case, for the bacteria. And you can then also put little homes inside the tank. So you can have these carriers, we call them. You dump them inside, and now the bacteria go sit on the carrier itself, and you get more of them. So the idea is just get more and more. The more and more bacteria you have, the smaller you can make the process, because you compact the concentration of the organisms. Next. Nutrients are a little more tricky, and so they are kind of the next step beyond this. And they're tricky because you have to really follow kind of the chemistry from ammonia that comes from the human body. You oxidize it to nitrate, and you denitrify it to nitrogen gas, and it goes up in the air. But it's a complicated process, and in doing so, you build a mechanical plant, and you send the flow through different zones. This picture here shows you a mechanical treatment plant. On the left-hand side, you can see the white surface is actually the bubbles coming to the top. It's air. We're bubbling air through there. On the left-hand side, there's no air. And we need a zero air condition, because then the bacteria will use this nitrate and break it down into nitrogen gas. So you trick the bacteria, you grow a special bacteria to do that for you. Now, in your case, nitrate could be a limiting factor. It's usually, for normal discharges, it's just BOD and suspended solids. But when you go on land application, you have to be very watchful for the nitrogen, because you don't want the nitrogen to go into the ground and pollute the ground, and then you have a problem there. Sometimes we add chemicals, and then, the more mechanical you can see what the basin these basins look like inside. There's equipment, and there's mixers and aerators and all kinds of stuff that we use. Next. What about pathogens? This is disease-causing organisms, and we want to get rid of them. Chlorine is a very favorite, used all over the country. And then UV is another option. These two are basically the mainstream options for disinfecting the water, so you don't have any pathogens to cause disease. And you can see chlorination requires a big tank to hold the water. UV takes a small tank, because it's very high intensity lights that you use to kill the bacteria. You can also use membranes, as showing here. These are very fine membranes that will exclude the organisms, and if you're crazy like me, you can drink the water in the end if it's really clean. This is in San Diego. They have a direct potable reuse demonstration plant. So next. All right. But I don't have any nasty habits because of it, Okay. So that's the liquid side. But there's also the solid side, because the solids settle down, and you need to do something with the solids. The solids, you can put them in a lagoon, like this one shows here, a large storage lagoon. Maybe put some floating aerators on to put a cap of oxygen on top of it, so you don't get odors coming from the solid storage. Mechanically, you can build a digester, and then can dewater it and even pasteurize the water. So the solids becomes an important thing that we cannot neglect, and we'll talk about that. Next. Okay, so how can we approach it? That's kind of the fundamental processes that you can use. What are the different approaches? In big picture, there's kind of two central themes, and both are in play here, I think. Decentralized and centralized. Decentralized meaning individual systems, like an individual's septic tank, or even a septic tank effluent pumping system where you collect the effluent and you pump it to a common location for disposal. You still have to deal with the residuals from that tank, so keep in mind. Centralized systems are systems that is just treatment plants. So these are what you were thinking of previously, to collect all the wastewater and send it down to Chico for disposal there. Next. So and just another kind of illustration. This is kind of the options. So you have individual homes with septic tanks in Leachfield. This is my cartoon. And then, or you can put them together and have a step type of system where you collect the overflows and then deal with the solids by cleaning out the septic tank or some other way. Communities, and you send everything to a liquid to a main treatment plant, with the solids then going to disposal through a landfill or agfill or something like that. Next. In all of this, the governing force here is the MPDS permit that contains the requirements that you have to meet to put the water in certain places. So in the stream that you go into will determine what you can put into it. And that's a whole analysis that EPA does, and you'll have input into that, whether you go to the river or reuse or land application. And same with the solids. If you take the solids out, you can apply them, put them in a landfill or some other location. Next. And here's an example of some preliminary inquiries that we've done for potential application here for land discharging and for surface water river discharging. Surface water could use a general permit conditions, which is just BOD and TSS limited. And then for the land application, you also have a BOD, TSS, BOD limit, but then you have this nitrogen requirement. And so for land application, this is what I was talking about earlier, that we have nitrogen, so we'll have to remove the nitrogen in those discharges. So when we look at the kind of the centralized treatment systems, what would they look like? And I draw up some cartoon pictures here. They look complicated, but they really are not. So, and I go from simple to highly mechanical. So this is least mechanical, this is most mechanical. And so if we look at the lagoons, for example, we have screens and grit that takes out the coarse particles right up front, right? You put a screen like I showed you, and grit, you set a tank, and all the heavy sand will go to the floor. And then you have a series of lagoons, and these lagoons get oxygen from the air, you disinfect, and then you go out into your receiving water. And the solids will accumulate in these lagoons. You pull them out, you may store them, maybe bring in a dewatering device and then go to a landfill or something like that. So some device here. Now, in all these, I'm going to use the same front end and the same tail, but I'm going to change the middle, fundamental, the heart of the process to put it in those terms. The next one is to do an aerated lagoon. In this case, what you do is you take a lagoon and you put mechanical air in it, and that gives you more oxygen, gives you a higher rate. So bacteria works faster, and by doing so, you make the footprint smaller. I'll show you an example in a minute. And then if you need to do the nutrient removal, it gets a little more complicated, and you have these different zones like I showed you that you need to create. Go higher rate and shrink the footprint. And then ultimately you can use a membrane type system to shrink the footprint even more. Next. So here's some examples. And then I calculated some footprints here just to give you an idea of what it is. So the lagoons, the natural lagoons where I don't aerate anything, I just let it flow through, let oxygen come through. I told you, like 60 plus days to hold that water. It turns out in my little calculation, just to get an example, these are just order of magnitude numbers. But you can see it's very big, 70 acres, 50 acres, something like that. That is huge, and probably not easy to find around here, I would imagine. The second one is to use an aerated lagoon. So now you put physical aerators in, it shrinks the footprint. It's a very similar process to the first one, except we've mechanized the heart of the process. And you can see now we go nearly 10 times, more than 10 times smaller for this 1 MGD, 5 acres to put this. And I'll show you the 5 acres in an example in a minute. Conventional, these are now, you can see a fully mechanical plant where we build boxes side by side, so we make the sides compact, get all the different equipment in there to accelerate the process, intensify with more bacteria inside it so that the process is faster, and it makes the footprint even smaller. And then the last one I'll show you is this one. This is the membrane bioreactor. What this does is for that last step, you grow all the bacteria, you see they live in this big tank, and then you need to settle them out or exclude them to clean up. In this case, we take one of those membrane elements and we put that in. Well, the membrane is able to concentrate the flow much more, about 3, 4, 5, 6 times more. And by doing so, I shrink the footprint. And so in this case, just the tank for the MBR is maybe a quarter of an acre. So you see we go from 70 acres down to a quarter of an acre, just by the technology that we select. Now it gets more and more complicated, more and more energy efficient, and more costly to operate. So those are all things that you need to weigh up and balance and match with your goals and your requirements. I showed you this picture. I found it online, I will confess to you. But I knew about this because inside that structure is a 150,000 gallons per day membrane bioreactor plant. So just to give you a sense of what's possible. So if you want to hide it or use it. So I just thought it's an interesting picture for you to see. Okay, so let's look at some examples quickly. Here are some high-rate lagoons. This is Los Alisos. This is in Southern California, in South Los Angeles. This is actually 5.5 MGD facility. And you can see here the aerated lagoon here, followed by others. This picture is maybe a little bit bigger, better to see the full footprint. And so while I was showing you this kind of footprint earlier, now I show you the full thing. Now there's these other processes that we talked about, the screening and the grit up front and the filtration and others at the end. Just for a size of sense, you can see this is the heart of the project, all these lagoons. This building here, that little thing there, that's the disinfection in the end. And up here in a little building here somewhere is the first part. So they're very small compared to the lagoon. Now as the main thing shrinks, this gets a little bit bigger. Next one. Mm-hmm. So this is, and then we go into conventional BNR. Now you can see kind of the whole structure empty here, side by side, wall to wall, very compact layout. And then in this case, also this is Colfax. This is Fort Bragg. In Colfax, we have 300,000 gallon per day plant on average. But they have a bunch of lagoons on the end. You can see here's one lagoon, there's a few others. They use those lagoons actually for equalization. They were existing, and so they use them for equalization. So they don't have to treat for 1 MGD because they just put it in the lagoon and wait, and then they bring the water back later. Same with Fort Bragg. Next one. And here's the MBR, just to give you another example. This one is in Healdsburg, California. I worked on this one. I liked it a lot because the field trips was very exciting in Healdsburg. So this is a 1.4 MGD plant. 1.4 is the mechanical devices there. You can see them there on that little island, and in large here on the right-hand side. You can see the mechanical equipment and so on. On the left-hand side, these lagoons are used in the same way, is to treat the peak flows, because the peak flows are difficult to manage through the membranes, because you can see you push all the water through it, so the less water you have to push at a time, the less membranes you need to provide. So provide very, very clean effluent. Next. Okay, so that's it.
We're all experts now.
You're all experts
Yeah.
now. I'll sign your
Yeah. Certificate?
certificate as you
Yeah.
give. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you much.
Thank you so much, JB. We appreciate you giving the brief presentation, and then, as I mentioned, we'll have a public comment period, and the goal, kind of try and find a balance between Q&A and public comments, and so we'll do our best to address everything we can in the amount of time that we have and making sure everybody has a chance to be heard. So, speaking of which, we have a survey for those that are here in person and those that are watching online. There are options for you. So out front, we have a couple of boards with some dots that you can put stickers on your preference. And then active and online right now, if you go to our website at paradisesewer.com, which has been recently revamped and relaunched with all of the changes, you can see on the left side of the screen, there's a little box here on the banner that says, "We want your input to take our survey." So, and then also the vendor invitation application for the appointments is right here on the right as well. So when it comes to the survey, before, if not everyone stays for the entire public comment period, before you leave, please do help us and make your opinion known on kind of these two really basic questions that really will help guide and inform us about the priorities, again, of the project. And so as we understand that we need to phase the sewer service area, we are curious on the public's feedback on what area would be your preference to be served within the first phase. And so option one would be the Skyway and downtown corridors, or option two could be the Clark Road corridor. And certainly I want to note here is that, as we mentioned, we are looking to phase it, and the amount of funding available needs to match what we build. And so this representation is not an option to consider because the actual final first phase hasn't even been developed. And so really the key here is we're trying to find out, is your priority Skyway or is your priority Clark, if you had a choice or had a vote to put a sticker on a board or answer the survey question online. You can do that, and that'll really help us guide if there's a solution that's more geared to one area of town or the other, whether the treatment facility is located in town or out, what would be your preference, Clark or Skyway? And then, as you just heard from JB, wastewater treatment plants, whether it's a lagoon or an aerated lagoon or all the way up to an MBR plant, they're going to have different community impacts. And so if you're making the decision within a fixed amount of funds that we don't know what exists, but we can recognize that there are really going to be two fundamental options. And so we're curious on your answer on this one. Would you prefer a first phase project which has a treatment facility outside of Paradise town limits, further away, which may lead to less impacts to the community, and serving fewer parcels with the first phase? Or would you rather have that facility with obviously mitigated impacts, but closer or within Paradise town limits and have impacts of having it closer and have it serve more parcels? And so obviously there's lots of questions abound on what the next steps are, but those two questions are really important to us and you, and so your feedback would be greatly appreciated. So with that, we can go ahead and move on to our public comments. It sounds like we have about 10 public comment cards, and so usually in a council meeting, we try and limit speaker time to 3 minutes, but I think really our goal was to leave as much time in the meeting to have you, the community, have the floor and share your ideas and thoughts and direction of where this project should go. And so I think 5 minutes is going to be plenty of time, and then if there's some additional cards, we'll just keep in mind that we're trying to make sure everybody has an opportunity to share their thoughts. And then if, obviously, I'll mention again, if you need more time, I really do want to encourage you to make appointments with town staff and our consultant team. Your opinion is so valuable, and this is a unique setting, but it's not the only setting. And so our contact information is available, glad to hand out cards, but those packets, if you want to fill one of those out, we will definitely follow up with you and schedule an appointment, and we'll take as much time as it takes to make sure that you are sharing all of your thoughts on this project and how it should go forward. So with that, maybe Colette, do you want to call who's first?
Thank you. Yes, I alphabetize these, so that is the order. So first, we have Kelly Connor.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Kelly Connor, and I'm here on behalf of the Paradise Citizens Alliance. We had a meeting where we got together and we listened to a step option that we thought would be a great fit for Paradise. Cliff Jacobson's going to be talking about it, so I won't go into that part of it, but I wanted to let you know that we had 10 members at that meeting, and the things that made sense to us in what he'll explain to you is that it was the less invasive option for our business community, and it was the less invasive cost-wise, and it's something that could be done sooner rather than later. So, and it made a very good impression on us that it's something that we could get behind. Since our inception in 2012, this has been a project that's been on our radar ever since then. We had a huge summit at the Paradise Performing Arts Center in 2017 to educate the public. We have listened to so many different options, talked about so many millions and billions of dollars that it's like we're just getting to the point where we want to get to something that will get us moving and get our cards on the table and start moving forward. So I'm so glad that we're able to be here tonight and talk to you and to let you know that we want to partner with you all in the process and to come up with those options and also educate leaders in our community to move forward and get the word out to the general public of people that need to hear about all the progress that we're making. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Great. Next, we have Lori Crowder.
Hi, I'm Lori Crowder. I'm reading this on behalf of Nikki Jones. I cannot attend tonight's meeting due to recent surgery. Council and staff, as you know, I have reinvested in my community when April and I opened Nick's. Part of this decision was based on the town council at the time saying we would have a sewer system in 3 to 5 years. It's now going on 7 years with no sewer and no clear plan that I know of. Nick's has a 1,500-gallon septic, 900-gallon grease interceptor, and a small leach field. If our system fails, we are dead in the water. You talk about a business district and walkable downtown. I don't believe this is possible without a sewer system of some sort. I believe we have served the community well. With April taking over the business, we have a bright future. But we need your help to make sure that we can continue to serve our town, and time is critical. I would like to see the sewer system in the downtown Skyway corridor. Yes, because of Nick's, but also I believe that that area would best serve the community. Respectfully, Nikki Jones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam Hartley.
Hello, my name is Pam Hartley, co-owner of Joyland's Candies in Paradise on Pearson and Black Olive. Been in Paradise, the business, since 1969. And of course, we're greatly concerned as a business what type of system goes in, something that would be affordable for a business to hook up to, as well as for us. Any of the road closures and those kinds of things that happen really affect our business. And so if something's going to come in with big sewer pipes and have the road all torn up again for who knows how long, that would greatly affect our business. So that's something to think about. The other point I'd like to make, just something to consider and think about as well, is if a system is run by, say, a district like PID or another district is formed, a district isn't allowed to charge more than what the utility cost. And so I think that that would be something to think about as opposed to having a for-profit company running and maintaining the system. So just something to think about there, and thank you for the opportunity.
Cliff Jacobson.
Thank you for the one-on-one on wastewater. Cliff Jacobson, town resident. I've been in the water treatment business for 48 years. I've done potable water and wastewater, as well as food sanitation, so intimately familiar with all of it. From the beginning, we have never had a sewer problem. We've had a leaching problem. Our septic tanks have been pumped for years, even before the town was a town. And they still are being pumped, and there are businesses locally that are very willing to stay in business and continue to do that. A step system is the best way to eliminate having to deal with the solids. You mentioned solids in your presentation, and you're exactly right. The first thing I tell my customers when I go into a food plant is, if you don't want to have to take it out, don't put it in. So when you put in a full sewer system, whether you use a grinder pump or however you get those solids into that pipe, when you get it to the collection point of treatment, you have to take them back out. You've got mechanical separation, you've got sedimentation, you've got chemical separation, clarification, nitrification, anaerobic digestion, aerobic, everything. And the more you put in that water, the more it's going to take to get it out. A step system eliminates that. Your greases and your oils, they float, they stay in the septic tank. Your solids settle out. On the second half of a typical septic tank, you take the effluent that's the clearest off. You transport that in small lines, no lift stations required, because every step pump, a little half-horse pump in a typical step system, pressurizes with low pressure the entire step system, all the way to the point of treatment. Yes, you have to treat it. You have to treat whether you do a full sewer or whether you do effluent only. But when you do effluent only, the treatment is far less intensive. All that stuff you had up there, you can throw about 3/4 of that away if you're not hauling the solids there and then having to separate them out and treat them. You know that. So we can't afford a whole sewer system. In an ideal world, it would be perfect. I agree with Mark. The best thing is to flush and forget. If we could afford a sewer system and we had the time to wait for it, and it wouldn't be disruptive to the businesses that are trying to survive in this town, that would be the way to go. We don't have the money, we don't have the time, and we can't afford to keep inconveniencing the business as we try to put something in. Step systems can be drilled directionally, they can go underground, they can go under sidewalks, they can go under without disturbing landscaping. Small lines can take that to a main line in the collection point. You're talking about, do we do Clark Road or do we do the Skyway? Put the main line in on both of them, because then you can run your feeders as the lots develop to that main line. So it's not Clark Road or Skyway. With a step system, it's much smaller diameter piping, it's much less intrusive, it's bigger and cheaper to go in, and we can afford to do them both all at one time. Set up the step tanks. If you've got an existing septic system and it works and you have a leach field that's failing, you put your step pump in between. You simply, instead of leaching, you pump it to the collection line and out it goes to a central collection point. If the system fails, it overflows into the leach field temporarily while you fix it or while the power comes back on. You put a full sewer system, and I was reading some of the analysis that didn't seem to come out on these systems that were engineered. The maintenance alone will kill us. If you've got 38 lift stations for gravity sewer, and you're having to put battery backup or generator power on every one of those, because you're gonna have to have those if the power goes out, or you're gonna have poop backing up everywhere, okay? So you've gotta deal with it, and the cameras, the vacuum trucks, the trained personnel, the PID arrangements with water to flush 850 manholes to have to get into and clean on a regular basis to keep the sewer system alive. We can't even afford to maintain it, much less buy it. I downloaded a 209-page brochure, a booklet from EPA, and it states right in there on like page 5, if you have less than 10,000 hookups, you need to put in a step system. You can't afford a sewer. And that's exactly right, and we don't even have close to that right now. We have 1,400 hookups that you're talking about. A step system is quicker, it's cheaper, it's the way we need to go. And while we're looking at it, we need to do a couple other things too. The town is great at running the town. You wouldn't tell the fire department how to put out fires. You wouldn't tell the police department how to police, although you control them. You shouldn't be telling somebody like PID, for example, that they don't know how to take care of wastewater. They put underground pipes and water in all the time. They're the ideal ones. They're a special district, they're a not-for-profit, they're owned by the people. They can't charge more than what it costs to maintain it. My recommendation would be that you enter into a new agreement with your design people, and you have them come up with a cost for a step system. Not a design build, just a design. You create a JPA with PID with the town of Paradise, so you have a joint powers agreement. You put it out for an RFQ, whoever has the best bid, that's who puts it in, whether it be PID, because I've heard some things, people saying, well, PID is not up to the task. Well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, who knows? But you put the RFQ out there, whoever gives you the best timeline and the best cost for the best product, you have them put it in as quickly as possible, and when it's in, PID maintains it, because they can certainly do that. They take care of underground pipes all the time. They know how much water's going out. They'll know how much to bill for it. It just seems like a no-brainer to me. I'm open to anybody that wants to see me afterwards. I know I've taken a bunch of time already, but I just think that we talked about the step system in the beginning, and because we thought we had better ideas and more money, we poo-pooed it and we didn't do anything with it. No pun intended. But I think it's our only option now. We are losing to Chico, and we are losing the opportunity of new businesses coming in and attracting people back to build our community. We can't afford to wait any longer. We cannot afford a sewer system no matter what market. If it's a smaller footprint, then it's more cost per lot. And the people who own it, they're going to eventually be the ones to pay for it. So if you can spread it out larger, that's actually better. And a step system will be able to let you do that for a fraction of the cost of a full sewer, and we all know that. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
William Kellogg.
I've lived here a long time. My family's here, and just recently had a great granddaughter born up here.
I'm sorry, Bill, can you speak into the microphone so people online can hear you? Thank you.
I've lived here a long time. I just had an 83-year-old birthday. I've watched the town council being recalled over sewage. Pipes exist in Skyway, have never been used. I've listened to this Price thing, finally did it in. Any kind of a sewage program that's conventional. Our excellent speaker there who explained everything is very familiar with that kind of a program. I've tried to talk since I was on PID to explain something. And I've even tried to explain to people in town who oversee our sewage problem, septic tanks. they don't do an adequate job in most cases. They have to be pumped for $200 to $300 a throw, some more than others. Sounds terrible. My idea, and it's an international idea, it's being used in Israel, Australia, the United Kingdom. It doesn't have any chemicals in it, sorry about that. It's called constructed wetlands. EPA has licensed it, made tests. There's a whole system to license it through the California Water Board. It has been installed in cities in California. The most recent one I'm aware of was in Anderson for a small development there that's about the size of this town right now. They can also be used at each home. The water doesn't leave the property. It stays there. The cost of them is considerably less than anything you've heard so far tonight. You can expand them or contract them, take them away, do whatever you want to do. If you need acreage for putting out the water and stuff, one of the times it was proposed, just run it down Neal Road and go to some of the large vacant dryland things, but that isn't necessary either. Here's what I wrote in 22. Where on the lot's property not served only with septic and many pollutants in our town from the septic tanks in the leach fields. Serving commercial businesses in town limits which need to be pumped regularly and shipped out of town. Certain businesses aren't coming back and spent $100,000 on their property when they were here before it burned down to have a pump out of town. Power in most cases is gravity like PID. Oh, by the way, PID by law cannot deal with sewage. Can't have a tool, a pickup, anything. That idea of having PID involved by law is no, big, big no. I'm agreeing that another district, special district up here for sewage and so forth would be a good idea to manage it. Costs less than conventional septic systems. Everything the man put on the board was excellent for large towns and everything. And in most cases, I talk to engineers, they don't know anything about a constructed wetlands. The one that was built in Anderson a few years ago was from an engineering firm in Reading. They're a small firm, they were building it, and they actually had to go through LavaCap to build part of it. So they're experienced for Paradise. No humor here. Okay. I found about this meeting about 10 minutes ago, and so I grabbed my file on constructed wetlands, and I'm trying to make it a brief talk. Pollutants less than commercial systems, e.g. if there can be a problem, if it's constructed right and maintained, it won't. Actually, the construction includes a small garden in your backyard. Insects built properly will be minor. Books online, line full of information, government support, constructed wetlands, permanent. Most of all of this came off the internet. All different kinds of information about constructed wetlands, and they have several different names. They're used on the East Coast and for large towns, small towns, and even for your house at home. And you won't have to pump them. Let's see, I didn't even think. Oh, Anderson's the town, the most recent, the North Coast, about 20 years ago. There's a system down on the desert in Southern California where they actually took a river and ran it through the plants and everything, and then the water coming out went back in the river. So it was potable. The same thing has been done in Oregon with the constructed wetlands. The government has supported them. There's funds available of different agencies. You'll find them out on the internet. Now, most of the time when I talk about this, people just turn their face away and sort of smile and say, oh, you're crazy. You don't have any background. Where is the project at? They're all over the state. Where do they come from? They're all over the world. And they're in well-educated places. Australia is always short of water. These worked. Israel actually is in the position to sell water now, which before they were very much, because they have wetlands. They call them a different name. But they have a tremendous amount of water. You can find them on the internet. I challenge you, all of you. You don't listen to me. Just be on your computer and look up constructed wetlands. You'll find an EPA page that's quite thick. When they approved the use of constructed wetlands, was federal and state monies available. I have no idea today. It's been 2 years since I picked this thing up. This letter I had here was dated in August of '22. And I was so pleased when the town finally came to their senses on the sewage system. There's no return on investment. For an investor, it was a bad deal from the very beginning. It's not feasible. Now they've finally gone through the financial of it, did good reports and said, it's not feasible. We need something else. This is not where you go along and have an individual pipe running into you. I didn't know anything about this system they're proposing tonight, but it's already failed once with the town. I asked you, just look into constructed wetlands, talk to engineering firms, find out for yourself. You don't need an 83-year-old man to talk to. And I forget people's names and don't remember how to speak all the time anymore. But I just think, stop a little bit and consider something. And that, if you're any of you are environmentalists in here, the environmentalist organizations approve this too. Because water comes out of it, it's potable. In other words, you can drink it. And you can set up systems of your own.
Not to interrupt, but can we get close to wrapping it up so we can let everybody get a chance?
I'm glad you agreed, and I'm glad you lost.
Thank you.
Okay. Kelly Konzelman.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Konzelman. I'm the CEO of Paradise Affordable Homes and RRA Builders. We are local real estate developers, building both manufactured homes, stick-built homes, and commercial buildings here in Paradise. About 3 years ago, I approached Steve Crowder with a concept to do a development off of Skyway on 12.5 acres, which was about 250,000 square feet of mixed-use space, multifamily housing, single-family housing, townhouse housing. And we had done a complete design, concept design to build something, and we even had the development money, approximately $30 million earmarked for this project, which would have been a wonderful center hub for this community. And we could not end up building it because we could not solve the wastewater issues. And we were very, very creative. In addition to my development business, I'm also the exclusive distributor of Jet wastewater systems in Northern California. Jet is a company that's been based in Ohio since 1959 and really have led the nation in developing new standards and new methodologies in wastewater treatment, both residential and commercial. So I'm a distributor of those systems. Those systems, by the way, are approved for use in Town of Paradise. So even using a variety of our own proprietary systems and a constructed wetland as part of the solutions, we still were not able to get the project financially viable due to the amount of effluent that we were going to create at the site. I am in favor of a form of step system in this town. I think that we need to seriously look at the 3 steps that need to take place. Collection, number 1. I think the intent of the original sewer project was to provide sewer access to the areas that would create the highest amount of demand or flow. Our commercial districts and areas around our multifamily zoned lots. And we know that those are basically up and down Clark Road, Skyway, Elliott, Pearson. So focusing collection in those areas makes sense, because as a community, for our single family homes, we have a solution that works. It's not ideal, but for residential sewer collection using on-site treatment, it's an alternative that works. It's already in place. We know what it costs. It's established. Let's not break that. But what we need to do is provide opportunity for economic growth in this town by fostering ability for new businesses to come in here, which they cannot now come in and do because we cannot build high enough density due to the wastewater issues. So I would say, number 1, collection should be focused on the areas that have the highest demand and the highest production of effluent. Second of all is treatment. One of the benefits of our jet system is that the treatment can occur at the point of where the effluent is produced. So instead of having a centralized system where all of the treatment has to occur off-site in a centralized solution, I think a better alternative would be to have modules throughout the town that could collect the system, that would collect the water and treat it at the site where it is being produced or in the vicinity of it's being produced. Number 1, that would reduce the amount of large flow pipes that would need to be used to carry the discharge. The systems I'm familiar with are completely underground. There's no structures above them. They could be installed in existing right-of-ways. And then we have discharge or the disbursement. What are we going to do about that? Well, a good, high-quality wastewater treatment system should be giving you effluent quality in the 3 to 4 parts per million of suspended solids and BODs. That's not too far away from getting, with some tertiary treatment after that, we could probably get this treated effluent down to a level in which it would be very safe to dispose of either subterraneanly through existing right-of-ways, through just leach fields of an extended sort, or possibly even to be discharged into a waterway should we be able to comply with the federal standards. But instead of looking, I think our human nature is to want to complicate our solutions. And sometimes we need to step back and say, is there a simpler way to do this? And I think by doing it in a modular fashion, we wouldn't be stuck with, do we choose Clark or do we choose Skyway? We can now choose to locate our initial systems in the area that has the highest demand. And that would be the easiest installation. And then through some creative design, create a system in which that is expanded and managed by the town or by an agency. And there would be a plan where that was done. But I think simplifying it by creating modules throughout the town would be a better solution than trying to form a centralized system that's managed by the town with a centralized collection point, centralized treatment plant, centralized distribution point. And I think it would allow us to work faster, implement it quicker, put those systems in the neighborhoods that need them now. For instance, I have an 1.5-acre parcel on Skyway just north of Billy Road. We have been trying to develop it for 2 years. And last week, I just put it for sale when I knew that the sewer system was not going to go through, because it's not economically viable to develop the property. So finding the areas that that are the easiest, the easiest entry, highest demand, and let's build systems that can be replicated quickly, simply, and easily, and let's focus on the commercial and multifamily areas that really need this product, and it will help the developers and the community at large. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Jake Lincoln.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jake Lincoln. I'm a sales manager at Closina. I'd like to thank everybody for inviting me. If you don't mind, I'm going to turn around if that's okay. I'd like to thank everybody. I actually got invited by a local resident. We're an original equipment manufacturer. We're a membrane bioreactor company. I'd like to give you a little bit of background on why I'm here and kind of our history as a company. So just so you know, I drove round trip 12 hours to be here. I do think this is a community that needs a solution like our company provides. So we work for a family. I work for a family-owned company. We've been doing contract operations and maintenance since '99. So we actually service the wastewater treatment plants in San Luis Obispo County. So that's where I'm coming from. Made the long trip up this evening. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what we do. We build pre-engineered manufactured MBRs, so package plant, maybe is the synonymous term in the industry. What we do a little differently is we build everything out of a modular stainless steel above grade system. So we're not talking about a constructed on-site construction project. We're talking about a similar analogy that I like to use is like the pre-engineered manufactured building industry. So a good example is if you're going to build a building today under 2 stories, the chances are you're not going to hire an architect to design the building, right? There's a manufacturer. We build buildings very often. We don't need to redesign the building. We instead call the manufacturer. It's an erected on-site type building approach. That's the same style approach we take in the wastewater industry. So people have concerns about road closures, right? One of the benefits to the pre-engineered approach is we're building the package off-site while construction occurs. We are minimizing the amount of construction that happens on-site, and we're delivering a complete wastewater treatment plant to be erected on-site. So a little history about the company and our expertise. So I'm offering my time to the community. I would love to be available to answer questions. I find it really encouraging that there's a group here to talk about the wastewater system and look at alternatives. We are absolutely an alternative. We are not your traditional approach. Some examples, right? Because I work on, just for sake of giving a little bit of credibility, I work on hundreds of wastewater projects a year. We build about 15 MBR projects every year, and we manufacture those down out of San Luis Obispo County. So we are building an MBR plant right now, and we're probably building about 3 or 4 of them at this exact moment, wet testing one in our facility in San Luis Obispo. So what I'm saying is we're doing this a lot, right? We have these costs from other projects that we can speak to in terms of how much this system would cost. We can offer a design, build, operate style proposal that would basically build it, operate it after the fact. So we can also offer that as part of a service from our company. And we're doing that for, some of you might be familiar with the University of Cal Poly. So this is something that we're doing for on a university level. So Cal Poly, for an example, is expanding their housing development. So new student housing, the community is growing. They're actually already going to the city of San Luis Obispo. So they are making the decision to become independent from the city to treat their own water, to keep the water on site at the university and reuse it for irrigation. So it's a good example of where we're doing these projects. So that's a 500,000 gallon per day system. It's a modular system, so we can absolutely expand it and grow with the developments. It's a very common target for our market is we go after these developments, right? The modular approach is something that's been talked about. That's what we do really well. So if you imagine our cargo container, right? We've all seen them. They ship across the ocean, right? Really easy to get on a low bed trailer and ship around the country. That's basically what we're doing. You put a couple of them together, you tie everything into a controls platform, and it's a wastewater treatment plant. I know I make it sound really simple, but that's what we've broken down. That's what we've broken this industry down to. So we're taking that pre-engineered building approach to the wastewater treatment plant. So it's already designed, right? We're already building them. It's a very similar design that we've already used before. We're just saying, okay, how big is your town? Okay, how many people is it? What are we trying to specifically treat for? No problem, we can do that with this particular design. So what does that mean for what's been talked about today, right? We've thrown out a lot of different technologies. Step effluent, you still have to treat it. So, right, regardless of if you do step versus gravity collection, at the end of the day, that water needs to be treated, right? It's still not technically treated. You might just be pushing this problem down the road, right? So what I'm offering is we can do a complete turnkey membrane bioreactor, and we can do that with a single point of contact and liability, and that's something that as we get these complicated projects, we get lots of subs involved, we get lots of different vendors involved. The community always looks to who do we call when there's a problem. What we want is to create a single point of contact, a single point of liability, and everything runs through Closina. If there's a problem, we deal with the sub. If there's equipment that needs replacement, you call us.
So not to cut you off, but we gotta.
Oh, no problem.
So.
I could go all day, so I appreciate you.
No,
I was just going to say, Jake, too, can you grab one of those forms and make sure we get your contact info? We'd love to meet with you.
I did fill out the vendor form. I provided a bunch of info.
Excellent.
I'll leave my card, and I'll just make myself available for any questions after the fact.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Next, Alma Green.
Good evening, council members and Mark, Matt.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Al, for using that. And I did want to mention, it's really important for people to use the microphone when they address the community, because those listening online can't hear you if you're facing that way and not talking to the microphone. So you got to really get in there.
Okay, I'll try.
Thanks, Al.
Hopefully everybody can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you some input this evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Al McGrean. I'm a long-standing resident here on Paradise Ridge and retired planning director of the town of Paradise, believe it or not. I served in that capacity from the mid-'80s until approximately 2010. You've heard some good concepts and some good input this evening, so I don't want to repeat a lot of that. I do encourage you folks to explore, if it's potentially feasible, the urban design work that's been done to date. Take a look at that and see if it's adaptable and can be applied to other systems, such as a step system, a step collection system of some kind. It might be worth your while. I don't know the specifics of that. I also agree with some of the other commentary you heard this evening. When it comes to phasing a smaller, lower cost system, concentrate your efforts as best you can with a collection system if necessary, or with membranes of some types that serve the commercial areas and areas that you have currently planned, and hopefully in the future, in the not too distant future, will have a new general plan to provide for multifamily housing and densities of various types. Strongly encourage that. And I know you're on a tight timeline, and we will try to support you as best we can as a community. I also belong to Paradise Citizens Associate organization.
Alliance.
And, I'm not speaking for them, but I just want you to know that's another capacity I serve in. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Al.
Monica Nolan.
Good evening. I'm Monica Nolan, CEO, Paradise Ridge Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to read a prepared statement on behalf of the Paradise Ridge Chamber of Commerce and our small business community. Our chamber has long championed a wastewater solution for our commercial corridors, recognizing its critical role in economic recovery and long-term sustainability. A reliable system is necessary for survival for small businesses that have fought to reopen and stay afloat in the aftermath of disaster and pandemic. Our businesses have weathered immense challenges, rebuilding from the campfire, navigating the COVID-19 crisis, and grappling with lack of volume, labor shortages, rising costs, and supply chain disruptions. Many of these businesses reopened against the odds, investing heavily in their properties and operations to serve this community. They cannot afford uncertainty, excessive costs, or prolonged disruptions that threaten their hard-earned and precarious stability. With the estimated project completion now pushed to 2031, the Chamber urges the town to prioritize solutions that ease financial burdens, minimize disruption, and accelerate progress. Business owners deserve clear answers to key questions that will impact their ability to operate and grow, such as connection costs. According to ParadiseSewer.com, more information on construction costs and connection fees will be available as the project progresses. Businesses deserve to know how much they will be required to pay and what financial options exist. Unless you're a pretty flush, you don't order dinner without seeing the price on the menu. Pardon the pun. Long-term costs. What are the projected monthly or annual fees for maintenance and service? And how will they impact the small business community? Interim solutions. Will new businesses be required to invest in temporary wastewater solutions only to face additional costs when the system is finally available? How will this affect business recruitment and expansion? Construction impacts. What disruptions should businesses expect during installation? Will there be road closures, parking restrictions, or access limitations? How will affected businesses be supported during these periods? Our businesses have endured crisis after crisis, investing everything they have into rebuilding our town. They cannot afford another decade of waiting and uncertainty. A practical, cost-conscious wastewater solution is fundamental to economic recovery, and its development must be transparent, efficient, and supportive of those who have worked so hard to stay in Paradise. The Chamber urges the Council and Planning Committee to put small businesses at the forefront of this discussion, ensuring a wastewater solution that enables growth, sustainability, and prosperity, not one that creates additional burdens and delays progress. We appreciate your leadership and look forward to working together toward a solution that truly serves the businesses and people of Paradise. Thank you.
John Ramalia.
Good evening. I think we've got to take a little bit of a step back. You can't ask anybody to design a system without knowing the loading. It's for every amount of solids or biodegradable products go in there, you need so much oxygen, so many pounds of oxygen to go in. When you get further on in the process, you need a carbon source to get rid of the nitrogen. Ratio is about 3 to 1. To try and build a 100,000 gallon per day system and not even know the area, and it only gets 25,000 gallons a day, it isn't going to work. You aren't going to make emission standards. A prime example is the Norweco system that is sitting at the theater. The town, in their great wisdom many, many years ago, made them put a way oversized system in there. They've tried everything from having septic waste haulers dump into the system to give it a kickstart to get it going, but they just couldn't keep it going. I agree with the neighborhood regionalized systems. It works. Norweco makes, who's the company I'm familiar with, Jet was a spin-off from them years ago. Norweco's been in business since the 1800s, making cast burial vaults. 1921 was when they made their first septic collection tank. They've been around for a while. The nice thing about Norweco is They sell the forms for building the individual modules. Those modules could be anywhere from 5,000 gallons to 40,000 gallons apiece. The forms can be bought, brought to Paradise, use Paradise local labor to cast it. They sell the mechanical packages. They basically design the system based on the loading. They design the system, they sell the mechanical packages to fit what that system is designed to do. The next biggest thing about it is all these modules that are cast are small enough that a very small squirt crane can set them. You aren't shipping them hundreds of miles. They're made local with local labor, and I know of 3 or 4 of the local septic contractors that would have enough experience and wherewithal to actually set them. Let's keep it local. I like the idea of maybe 4 or 5 sites in town for treatment. These systems could be set up underground with a building over the top and whatever design you want, and you don't even know they're there. Now we get to effluent disposal, because you're gonna have, I mean, that's a problem. We've got forestry projects going on all over the area. Typically for nitrogen reduction, you need 4 parts of carbon and 3 parts of carbon and 1 part of nitrogen. And the reaction will basically process the ammonia and release the nitrogen into the air, which is a fine, you know, most of our environment is made of nitrogen. And they use peat bogs to treat effluent. You can put worms in them, you can put anything you want in them. And you need that carbon source for it to work. The commercial composters, if they get too much carbon and not enough nitrogen, they got a problem. It won't break down into the compost. I mean, we've got everything we need in the area. I think we got to first identify what the loading's going to be in a given area, look at what it's going to produce, and then produce how to treat it. But just to say we want a 100,000 gallon system, I guarantee you that if you put 25 or 30,000 gallons a day into it, you're going to have problems with that system because it wasn't designed for that. You'd be better off to have 3 10,000 gallon systems and then maybe buy a 20 and take 2 offline and keep it designed to your loading. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Melissa Schuster.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Schuster. Cliff Jacobson is my other half over there, and I'm a former town council member. I was part of the decision to go down to Chico, which was not something that we really wanted to do at the time. But that was where the funding was. And so we felt like we needed to make that happen. I am delighted to hear that's out. When we were in that process, we heard from a lot of people about keeping our water on up here in Paradise. And one of the things that hasn't been mentioned tonight is recycling our water. And I believe that the STEP system can lead into, because we're just removing the effluent, and we can move into a lot of these treatments that were talked about tonight, can be treated to the point that we can recycle our water, we can clean it up for irrigation, we can put purple pipes in, we can, during times of drought, we can water our lawns, or maybe it goes to PRPD or to, to water the parks or something like that. I think that's one of the important things to look at. And I think that I have heard from the Central Valley Water Board that there is money for recycled systems. So that's really important to look at as well. I wanted to mention about, earlier someone mentioned that PID it was illegal for PID to deal with sewage. We're not talking about sewage. We are always talking about wastewater. Thank you, Mark, for saying wastewater as opposed to a whole sewer system. Our septic systems, as we know, have never been a problem. It has always been our leach fields due to our I started to say pornography, but that's not it. It's geography. I know, right? It's late. But anyway, we're talking, and we have existing septic systems. The STEP system can use those existing septic systems and just add to them at a very, very small cost. Or if you need a new system, there are septic systems that already come with the STEP portion of it there. So we're not asking people to invest in a brand new sort of system. We're just asking that they add to what they have or choose one that is a little bit easy, that includes the STEP system. And I think that is key because cost is key. We can't, what we really need, we don't need any more box stores up here, guys. It would be convenient for us not to have to drive 15 minutes to Walmart, but really that's not where we're going. We were excited to get Big Lots up here, and Big Lots is gone. We lost, Rite Aid, our beautiful Rite Aid building, had nothing to do, neither of those had anything to do with the town or its demographics or anything like that. Our beautiful Rite Aid building, and now Rite Aid is gone. But what we have, and what is consistent, and what has always been here, are the mom and pops, the Joy Lynn's, the Nicks, the Bobbies. And I am very proud to add Burt Barn to that as well. We need to protect these small businesses. We can't, and our roads, you guys, we're just getting new roads. I don't want to see them torn up again for sewer pipes. None of us want to deal with that. I wanted to mention too that PID is fully capable of handling wastewater and doing wastewater, and that is something that is done all over the nation. Water districts typically handle both wastewater, sewage, and potable water. In fact, right now, Thermalito, the water district in Thermalito, is taking care of their wastewater issues. So I like the STEP system because it is portable, and by that I mean when Mr. Kelly was talking about his housing development, a STEP system could be installed in those lots and those houses, and maybe it goes to a park in the neighborhood, and the effluent is used to keep the park green. But what it allows is for the lots to be fully developed without having to have individual leach fields. And that goes for the downtown area too. Our lots in the downtown area are small, and we obviously can't do the leach fields any longer. So I really feel that this is something that that ticks all the boxes. It is the least expensive. It is the least impactful to the community. It solves the problem, which is wastewater and not septic. And I'm excited to have us move forward because I think it's time. It's time. Let's be the council that makes this happen for us, please. Thank you.
John Stonebreaker.
First, I'd like to thank you all for convening this meeting and listening with open minds. very nice to be involved at this stage in the process. I will confess that I live outside of town limits, but as I told SERPAC 4 years ago, this is necessarily going to be a regional solution because this impacts all of us, even on the upper ridge. So our quality of life has markedly diminished since the business community here in town was largely demolished by the fire, and creating the conditions which will allow Paradise's economy to recover will also make our life on the upper ridge much better and encourage reconstruction on both sides of the dam. It will benefit your tax base and Paradise Rec and Parks District's tax base, and it will help bring back those businesses that require the larger population like a hospital. So we're very much encouraging you all to do what it takes to find some sort of solution in those commercial parcels which need to be developed with a higher intensity. Not the single-family parcels, but where you want to have a new business come in on a smaller lot that doesn't have the room for the leach field that's going to handle their volume. If you want to have restaurants or hotels or a laundromat or any of these businesses that simply can't exist here, we want to have those businesses exist in our community. We consider down here to be part of our community. We don't want to be isolated. We want to be part of this solution. No, what's out there outside, where does the community want to have the solution? Where do we want to have the treatment plant? It depends on what that is, right? If that's this prefabricated module, that can be closer to town than if it's a giant lagoon like they have in Sterling or in off of Mesilla Valley Road that serves the Sunview Mountain Oaks subdivision. So that makes a big difference. And again, where you're going to put that also influences which corridor is more appropriate to develop first. That if you say, oh, we're going to put this on the Walmart parcel, but, okay, then you want to do the Skyway side first. So it's not clear that you can do that. So there's a little bit of cart before the horse out there. And I'm not here trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to make $100 million off of building this project. We want to see the solution come sooner rather than later so that the recovery can be accelerated. And, we all know that costs are continuing to increase and increase. And the farther we push this down the road, the more unaffordable it's going to become. So a lot of things that I would have said have been said before me. That's why I chose to wait. With regards to the reuse of water, one of the things that I noticed is that Paradise Irrigation's consumption charges are roughly 3 times as high from May through October as they are from November through April. So a tremendous amount of the water that is being used for irrigation during the dry months. And it's, I don't know the specifics of this modular system to treat this in town and the ways in which that could be used here to provide, outdoor irrigation water as opposed to, sending it down to the Miocene users who got cut off because of the canal collapse in the Camp Fire, or whether it's going to go into Gold Run and feed rice fields or any of that. I don't have that answer. But the key is that talking about what's been here said in other words, the non-monetary costs of installing the deep gravity system with the large pipe 16 feet below ground and all of the disruption that's going to cause to the businesses here and all the traffic backups that we've been enduring for 6.5 years, that there will be non-monetary costs which might not be captured in your financial analysis to digging the deep trench rather than the simpler, shallower, smaller diameter, effluent-only system. And I agree that Paradise Irrigation understands how to operate that, whether that's through an expansion of powers through my friends at LAFCO in the back, or whether that's a joint powers with the town and the irrigation district. But you have a trusted partner right here who can operate that. If you want to say, rather than having a commercial vendor operate it. And the other thing is that they have the trucks and the personnel right here, so that if something does happen, they're not having to come from their other district, they're already right here. So I encourage you to work with our friends at Irrigation District and investigate whether one of those two options, either an expansion of powers or a joint powers, would be the right answer for the operation of the system, assuming that the numbers work out, and it does seem, from my perspective anyway, that the 2017 solution of the effluent-only system is still the correct solution in 2025. It would have been nice if Santa Claus gift-wrapped us the Blackwater flush and forget system. It turns out that hasn't happened. So I think that the original analysis from before the campfire still applies in that way. And we really should get the ball rolling, as was mentioned before. And I think that the fastest way to get this solution is through the effluent-only system. And regarding the financing, as Kelly was mentioning, these parcels are significantly more valuable if they're connected to sewer than if they're still on septic. And it might be correct to have some sort of a parcel tax or a community facilities district if you can't get every single dollar from the state. There might be a way to have these parcels whose financial value is significantly increased by not having to deal with all their wastewater on site. That might be a way to help finance this and get things going. Thank you very much for your time.
Mark Thorpe.
Thank you. I appreciate the ad hoc committee getting together. I do want to point out, it'd be nice if sometime in the future the private sector was invited as part of that process. I understand you have some restrictions in the public sector, but gosh, we got a wealth of knowledge out here that we'd like to share with you as part of the discussion and process. I don't want to go without thanking you. Paradise Police Department does this all night long. We appreciate you, John. Colette. I want to take an opportunity only because in this time right now, we seem to be losing a lot of our public sector employees, and I am sensitive to that. And I just want to thank you, sir, for being there and being available 24 hours a day. Okay, my name is Mark Thorpe. I'm business advocate for the Paradise Ridge Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to reiterate all those things. I'm going to keep this pretty sweet, but I did let somebody know, a business owner within the walkable downtown area, as it's going to be identified, that I would read this for him since he couldn't be here tonight. Dear Honorable Council members or town staff ad hoc, I am writing to express my strong support for the town of Paradise's efforts to pursue alternatives in the previously selected full-scale sewer system. I appreciate the community sewer meeting being held this evening. I'm unable to attend and felt sending you my thoughts in the email letter would be the next best thing. I understand also that he sent this to you, so I just want to make it public record. It is imperative that we find a practical and efficient wastewater solution that enables the town's recovery, promotes economic growth, and fosters a thriving community. Specifically, I would like to voice my support for a potential septic tank effluent pump, the STEP system, and beneficial water reuse. Beneficial water reuse, similar to the approach being advocated by Cliff Jacobson and Melissa Schuster. Their proposed solution offers a forward-thinking and cost-effective alternative that aligns with the needs of our residents and businesses while reducing the financial burden on the community. By implementing a system of this nature that utilizes existing infrastructure where possible, we can accelerate development and make Paradise a more attractive place to live and do business. I'm not going to read the rest of this because actually these points have already been put out. But I am going to make one other point, a couple of points. I appreciate that Melissa brought up the purple line and the idea that recyclable water is important. As we all know, the drought is not going to get any easier. And the idea that the state's going to mandate restricted use of water is going to be an issue. And that we would have a water available for also what is proposed, and I know that PRPD is working on, safe zones, green spaces. The idea that we're going to utilize these in the neighborhoods to make it a safer environment. Recyclable water is going to be absolutely essential. We are limited. I also want to make mention that hasn't been mentioned tonight, and that is that we are at the end phases of our general plan. We're getting this through. We need to have this set up so that we can finalize. People need to know what we're going to be doing within our community. If we're talking about residential over businesses in the walkable downtown area, or if we're talking about moving it for Skyway and Clark, they need to understand what's going to be coming down the pike. And I say as the last item, the BizPro, that is the business program that's being developed by the BRIC, is also needing this information. When people come into our community, we need to let them know that this is going to be the decision. That addresses the issue of time sensitive. We hear people saying it out here in different ways. We are constricted in our time. We need to get this message out. Thank you very much.
That was the last card.
All right. Had nobody, let's see, if you've wanted to speak and you did not fill out a card, we have a couple minutes before I close this out with next steps and summary and thank yous. Seeing one, you want to come forward? I just want to make sure you all took so much time that everybody had a chance to be heard before we close it out.
My name is Tony Brandy. I'm an architect as a profession. I've been living in this town for 25 years. My message is very simple. Why do we keep thinking in growth? We don't even have the town back the way it was, which was 25,000. And then how are we going to put this kind of a system into an area that we don't have the population? Well, that will be easier. And Italy is very simple. What they do, the town that still remains, just like a Venice, is Venice. But also have another town they call New Venice. So what it's really bringing to you is, why do we keep pushing for the same space? Why don't let the people have the septic tanks the way they have it? When you want to concentrate in that. Why do you have those mammoth design for something you're never going to be required, you're never going to fulfill? You need more of that. You need the roads, you need the things, you need accessibilities. And the town, as you know, is full of hills. And it's very hard to accomplish that. But I think you're looking, I don't know what they're saying in English. You can't see the trees from the forest? So that's something you should look into. Because I think you're overgrown. How long would it be? Already 5 years after the fire, and we still have problems, right? We haven't finished. With a lot of people that haven't built very much. The houses are smaller. There are all kinds of prefabricated homes because they can't afford the big ones. And then we're going to go around and say, how about you let us plug in so you can get sewers? I don't think people are going to be easy to come and do it. But if you concentrate in an area that the people have the septic tank that is working, don't touch it. Just leave them alone. The areas that you think you can grow, the areas you can be at, and make the town a little different from what you want to be, and we have less friction. Why? Because it's new. You heard of Brasilia, right? Anyone heard of Brasilia? It's the capital Brazil. They built a new city. They couldn't make it work in the old towns. So that's the kind of approach I think you can do, no meaning that you haven't. I chose an observation.
Thank you.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for, again, the public comment section has just been so valuable. It really demonstrates the energy, the drive, the importance of this project, and we hear that, and we will definitely take all of the comments that you've taken the time to give us very seriously. And so with next steps, our plans are to summarize the community input from this meeting and the survey we mentioned out front and online. We mentioned the opportunity to set up appointments, especially with interested vendors and parties that want to have a longer conversation than here at the public meeting. We will then go ahead and report this information back to the ad hoc committee, a broader presentation back to the town council. And again, we're really trying to streamline this effort, keep the momentum. We heard a lot of information about the urgency of this project and delivering as soon as possible. So with that, we're really trying to target revised project direction either in May or June of this year. And so that will enable us to continue our construction funding pursuits, revising environmental approvals, and commencing design work. So with that, I will turn it over to Mayor Crowder for any closing remarks.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and giving us direction. We're up here and we're doing all of this for all of you, and that's why we're doing it. That's why we're here, and we want to keep getting your input on everything you do. And I'm looking at tonight, seeing all these people here, and that's great. And I'll tell you, I'd love to see this at a normal council meeting because it's great to see this many people. So anyway, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, guys.